It's about college basketball and how it's believed that players, some schools, are paying players, right?
Well,
as a matter of fact,
not so much schools.
If
In one case, yes.
If you have a first round draft pick, chances are your school should be worried. I think is what the quote was. In studio here, Ray Carruthers, who used to do Sports Watch with Manaski here on WIBX. You believe, are you for players being paid?
Absolutely for players being paid.
You get tight on that because I run these mics differently.
A little better?
Much better.
All right.
Okay, so you believe they should be paid?
Oh, absolutely they should be paid. Me and Jeff got into this a lot when we did the show, going back and forth, and I vehemently agree that they should, without a doubt, be paid.
So you've done some research on this, and does Syracuse get involved in this?
Syracuse was not one of the schools implicated. The recent NCAA sanctions that just came down, the teams that have been implicated are big-name schools.
Yeah.
Duke, North Carolina, Texas, Kentucky, Michigan State, USC, and Alabama. They found that through these reports, through these investigations, that these teams were not only paying players but also compensating their families at the same time.
Hold on. Not teams necessarily. In some cases, agents. The only one where there's a team allegation at the moment is the coach from Arizona,
Sean Miller, who on wiretap agreed to pay $100,000 to a player who, unfortunately, is probably never going to coach again.
This happens all the time. I do believe. So let's say a player comes in and they don't have money. And that happens a lot. A lot of inner city kids, especially in basketball.
The majority of them. They come from nothing. Yeah.
So all of a sudden the player's like, I can't afford A, B, and C. So somebody finds somebody who's willing to donate to somebody who's willing to take care of the woes of the player. I believe that happens far more than we would ever realize.
Bill,
boosters.
Some of these allegations, there's a stark contrast. In one case, as we just mentioned, it's a coach saying, yes, pay this recruit $100,000 so he comes here. Okay, in other cases, there are stories of agents, players named on this list where the only violation is that the agent may have bought him dinner. It says $70 dinner.
Yeah.
Now, these are being talked about in the same conversation. I think those are two huge differences.
Look at what happened with Syracuse. With that program, was a Y program or something? I mean, some of those, it seemed so ridiculous.
And those are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you look at the sanctions that came down for Syracuse. Syracuse isn't implicated in the stories at all, thank God. But, I mean, you look at some of the sanctions.
The penalty that was imposed on Boeheim and Syracuse was way out of whack compared to
out of whack. And remember North Carolina? They were saying they were going to get hit the most harsh. That investigation has been going on for how long now?
Yeah,
and they're like they're going to get slapped on the wrist the hardest. Nothing has happened in North Carolina, but like Louisville just had to vacate the championship.
How do you vacate a championship? Really?
And what happens when does it go to Michigan, who lost the game? Is there just no title for that year? But just starting from the bottom. We look at college, it starts way before that.
Yeah.
It starts at the AAU level. My buddy's a coach, so he plays against a lot of AAU teams throughout the country. These teams are sponsored by Nike. Nike pays for their jerseys. They pay for their shoes. Like, they pay for their travel. They pay, so, it doesn't start at college. It starts at the AAU level, and we're talking about like 12, 13-year-old kids that are being sponsored by big-name shoe companies, and then we all know about the recent scandal involving the big-name shoe companies that is still going, that hasn't even started the legislation process and what's going to go on with that. It's mind-boggling to me, the more research I did into this, how far back it actually stems and how it's just now being brought to light.
So why now?
Why now is just a head-scratcher. We were talking a little bit before we got on the air. I was doing some research last night. I was talking to you. I found a story. Charles Barkley played for Auburn in the 80s, admitted to taking money. This has been going on for decades.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about basketball. I mean, if you look at, say, football, for example, right? Whole nother breed. You could talk about Reggie Bush, Cam Newton, all those stories. I mean, you could talk about that for days. But you ever watch the Heisman ceremony? These are freshmen, right? Freshmen, sophomores being nominated for the Heisman Awards. They haven't signed on for an agent yet. They haven't committed to going pro. Yet these kids come from nothing, but you see them showing up. They have Rolexes, they have diamond jewelry, they're wearing Beat headphones, and they came from the projects. You ever scratch your head and be like, well, I wonder how we got that, or I wonder what happened there.
And I used to make this argument, too. I've actually changed my position. I now agree with Ray that they should be compensated. I used to rally against this.
You think they should be compensated?
in some way. You can't have.
I do, but I also think, and I was going to bring this up. Does that give a disadvantage to the colleges that don't make as much as a Louisville?
That's the problem. How you compensate people, and what does Colgate get versus what Louisville gets, and what does the men's program get versus the women's lacrosse program? I think that's a huge can of worms.
You'd be surprised. I pulled a whole bunch of numbers here.
You brought in a graph here.
Yeah, I did. So, before I get into that, I just want to take a quote from NCAA President Mark Emmert, who, after this came out, he said, these allegations, if true, point to systemic failures that must be fixed and fixed now if we want college sports in America. Simply put, people who engage in this kind of behavior have no place in college sports. They're an affront to all those who play by the rules. Mark Emmert made almost $2 million in total compensation. That's back in 2015. That's the latest numbers that I can find. That's nothing compared to what these other guys are making. So the commissioners of the power conferences, the Big 12, Bob Bosley, he was credited with nearly $2.7 million in 2015. Big Ten, Jim Delaney, $2.4 million. Delaney also became eligible for future bonus payments that the return indicates to be worth more than $20 million. These guys, the NCAA, is lining their pockets with money off of the work, off of the sacrifice, off of the toil of these players who can't get anything. I mean, if you're a 5-star recruit, your dream your entire life has been to play in the NBA. I mean, you've been grooming for this since you were 5 years old, watching LeBron James, watching Michael Jordan, be like, man, that's my dream. That's what I'm going to strive for. Yeah. That's my goal, is to play in the NBA, from playing from school, from playing from AAU. And then you finally, you're an All-American. Then you get a scholarship. And don't get me wrong, the NCAA comes back and they say, the quality is we're giving them a free education.
Opportunity.
And by no means am I discrediting the education, because these are prestigious universities, and if you're going there to get an education, then God bless you, because that speaks a lot on a resume from going to these places. However, when you make it mandatory, in 2005, when the NCAA made their collective bargaining agreement, they said you have to be either 19 years of age, you have to play 1 year in college, or you have to be 1 year removed from high school graduation. These players don't have a choice.
Right.
So if you're the best player in the nation, you can't go to the NBA. You have to go to college. And if you come from nothing, which, let's face it, the majority of these players, they come from the projects, man. They're coming from Chicago. They're coming from New York. They have nothing. Their parents have nothing. They're living off welfare. Brothers, sisters. Who's taking care of them?
You on your graph, you have annual value of men's college basketball players.
This surprised me.
This was done in 2016. So what they did is they
this is from Business Insider.
And actually, going from 2017, the most NCAA. This is just basketball revenue generated by school. Just basketball. I took the top 10 schools. Louisville was tops at $45.6 million. That's how much that school generates off of basketball alone. Duke was second at 31. Kentucky third at 27.2. Syracuse fourth, $26.9 million.
I wish they'd play like they were fourth.
Yeah. Why don't you pay a couple players to come over to Syracuse?
I know.
Yeah. I mean, what is Boeheim doing?
And rounding out the top 5, you have Indiana at $23.1 million. So what they did is they took, this was a graph done by Business Insider, they took an annual value of men's college basketball players, an average player, not the best player on the team, just an average player on the team of Louisville. If they paid these players according to what the NBA collective bargaining agreement is, you would see that the average player at Louisville is worth over $1.7 million.
But hold on. See, this is where I start to disagree, because, again, you're talking about Louisville, a top 10 college basketball program. How does that compare to St. Bonaventure?
Well, you take a look at the entire Division I average. If you take all players in Division I,
if you look at the bottom,
can't pay players $1 million.
If you look at the bottom graph, the Division I average, 296,723.
Yeah.
So I see your point that you're looking at the top schools. They have the top players.
Well, and at the
they
same
have
time,
the most average.
At the same time, those schools, those players want to go there for a reason. Now, it could be because they were the ones paying the players, but also people want to go and play for Coach K. People want to go and play for Jim Boeheim. They want to go play for
in the dome. They want to play in front of the largest
Cameron
crowd.
Indoor. They want to do that. So
but you could also make a strong agreement, because we have never seen a rise of these mid-level conference schools like we have in the past few years and the runs that they've made in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Look at Florida Gulf Coast, for example. Did you hear their name before they made the run of the tournament a few years ago? Look at the other schools that nobody has heard of that have now made a name. Wichita State. Where were they 10 years ago?
Right.
Now they're a nationally ranked team. Butler. I mean, Gonzaga. Look where they were before, Mark Few went there. A lot of these mid-major schools are now making a name for themselves. So are they acquiring the players the quote-unquote traditional way by skewing, steering them because of the coaching, because of the education?
Right.
You could scratch your head at a lot of this, but if the NCAA wants to keep digging, the more skeletons are going to end up finding because this is from the top to the bottom.
There's two things I think that are important.
And it ain't new.
It's not new. It's been going on for decades. How is this just coming to light now boggles my mind.
There's two things I think that you got to keep in mind in this Yahoo report. One is, there's a ledger submitted by an agent, right, that basically says, I need to be compensated because I paid Andrew $6,000 and then I paid Ray $15,000, right? But there's no. Some of these players are coming out saying, I don't know that guy. He never paid me any money, type of a thing. So there's no, it's not like a check receipt that so-and-so cashed this for $6,000. It's a guy submitting an expense report, which almost makes me think a little bit. I take my buddies to a game, and I say we talked about work, and now I write it off as an expense.
Yeah.
Are these players actually getting the money? Is it parents getting the money? Which is also a violation. I just have questions. And actually, one of the players' mothers came out. It was the family that was on the list because supposedly an agent bought him and his mother dinner. It was a $70 dinner. Mm-hmm. She said, I've never met that guy, and trust me, I've never eaten at a Ritz-Carlton. If I did, I would have remembered.
Yeah.
So I think there's some...
Bill would have been more than $70, too.
I thought that, too.
And you think about how...
We're going to need some to-go containers.
When you think about how they're grabbing these people for these families and these kids for a dinner, and then the type of money that's being thrown around when it comes to other top prospects,
right?
It just seems quite. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, another thing.
Wait, one more point. My other point was this: you have to keep in mind too that so there's the $70 for the dinner. The other, I've lost my point.
There's $150 for the prostitute.
Yeah, right. Is there a threshold that it meets? I do think players should be.
The mother agreed never going to the dinner. She didn't know who the guy was. These people are trying to help you out.
I think the players should be compensated though with advertising. I think they should be allowed, if they're a good player, to be in the commercials.
And that's the thing. You talk about ticket sales. You talk about memorabilia.
Yeah.
You talk about TV contracts. So March Madness, especially. All right. In order to get to the Final Four, you need the top talent. Right.
Yeah.
Top talent acquires you multi-millions of dollars for those programs. Mm-hmm. And I'll get into another point quickly, but just recently, where is it? Was it TBS?
Think about the money they're making.
Turner Broadcast and CBS Sports. They extended their March Madness deal for the NCAA. They extended it for another 8 years for a total rights fee of $8.8 billion.
Yeah.
That's just the TV deal.
Right.
That's not including the advertisers that are spending money during the actual games.
Sure.
Which
think about how much money Syracuse made off of the Carmelo Syracuse jersey,
right?
or
you don't get
any
a
of
cut
the
of that.
number of play, right?
Going to the. Did you guys ever watch that 30 for 30 on the Fab Five?
Yes.
This is going back 20 years. Fab Five, right?
Yeah.
Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, back in the 90s?
Yeah.
So Chris Webber didn't take anything. And he got so fed up, he's like, I'm walking down the streets of Michigan. I'm going by stores. I'm seeing my jersey being sold out, being worn by everybody. Mm-hmm. I'm not getting a dime off of that. Right. That's me.
Yeah.
People are coming to the games for me. People are buying my jersey, and I'm not getting anything.
What you're given is the chance to make real money in the NBA. That's the big.
You know what?
That's the golden nugget at the end.
Yes, but however, if you want to avoid this quote unquote systemic failure, you need to give them the opportunity. If your whole if your whole concept is we're giving them a free education, let them have the choice of going to your school for a free education, or if they have no interest in getting education, because let's be honest, if I'm a 5-star recruit, If my whole goal is to be in the
One
NBA
and done, baby.
and I'm the best to do it, let me go right to the NBA.
Right.
Don't tell me that I'm giving you a free education. You're forcing me to go to school.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, too, allowing kids to go to the NBA. My other point, just quickly, was you talked about the NCAA digging up in skeletons. The reason we know this is because the FBI has subpoena power. They can do wiretaps.
Right.
The NCAA, all they can do is say, Andrew, did the agent give you money? No, I swear he didn't.
Here's the problem I have, though,
it.
is couldn't the FBI be working on, I don't know,
Russia.
possible shooters, the Russia situation, Hillary Clinton's emails, instead... And I love it when Congress likes to bring in, the NFL and bring in, super
steroid guys in baseball.
Yeah, I almost feel like it's for their own entertainment, their own enjoyment.
Like why was Roger Clemens ever testifying in Congress?
Yeah,
and how much money is being spent over these investigations, which is just
to find out one kid got dinner, $70 dinner.
At the end of the day, what happens?
At the end of the day, for me, it's not a question.
So this is going to go away.
It's not a question on whether or not the players should be paid. Without a doubt, looking at all these numbers, the amount of revenue that they're generating, it's without a doubt the question, they should be paid. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the hardest part for the NCAA is finding the system in which they should be paid.
Right.
How do you compensate these players? Is it based on the amount of revenue that's generated for the school? Is it based based on performance, though, at the same time,
sports,
too?
You're going to end up getting into male versus female. Who
well,
draws
and that's
what?
the thing.
I mean,
If you're a volleyball player, obviously you're not generating as much money for the school. But if you're Duke and you bring in $31 million a year, I'm Marvin Bagley. I'm the best player on the team.
Right.
How much am I going to get paid as opposed to, say, a walk-on or someone who only averages a few minutes? I mean, we just got to come to the conclusion that the NCAA isn't in the structure of academic achievement anymore.
Dan says, don't they get a free ride to the school? Isn't that money that they get paid ultimately? And when you think about how much you pay for, an education at Syracuse, it's a lot of money at the end of the day.
I've always that was always my position is these guys have an opportunity to get a great education at a great institution, but at the same time, especially if you read through this, what they call one and done. The kid comes, he plays for 1 year. He gets on campus in maybe October. He plays with the basketball team. He's done with class by January, and then after the season's
tutors
over,
are doing his work for him.
He's preparing for the NBA, so he's only in school really for 3 months.
Yeah, but the kids don't even have time to have a job, man.
They
don't
have
understand.
A job.
They can't work. You're nonstop.
That's why they should
during
be able
the season,
to go and do advertising.
You are practicing
like
nonstop for the games, for the team. You have no time for a job, and then when it's
and they
the
don't
off
let
season,
you have one anyway.
No, and when it's off season, you're still training to get to that next level. You have no time to get a job, so they don't even really have a choice. They have no money. And, on your question, who was it that just chimed in?
They're getting an education. They're getting a free ride.
Okay. Well, listen to this. In 2005, UNC Athletics.
Danny's prepared for
you want
your
this
question.
paper to throw?
In 2005, UNC Athletics generated almost $55 million in revenue.
Yeah.
10 years later, in 2015, that number rose to almost $90 million. But guess what? However, the students, the cost for each student for everything, rose by nearly 2.5 times.
Right.
So not only are they generating almost double the amount of money, they're paying 2.5 more times to go to school.
And when you have a school that's a great basketball school or a great football school, your tuition can be higher. That's part of the value of the people desire to go there.
But that's fees all around. That's not just tuition. That's everything. I mean,
all right. Well, to be continued. I appreciate it, Ray. Good stuff. Really kind of wonder where all of this goes. I still don't understand how you can take away a national championship. I don't get that. Because it's happened. And how do you I just don't get it.
Depending on when this investigation wraps up, there could be serious sanctions for schools. And I'd say the silver lining for Syracuse is that it's possible a team that deserves to be in the tournament can't go, and Syracuse slides in the back door.
You mean as early as this season?
Yeah, they're talking about. I mean, the Arizona coach has been fired. They're talking about suspending other players.
Has he been fired yet? Though he was sat out for a game pending this entire thing. He hasn't technically been fired yet.
I'll say this: there's a lot of allegations about players and coaches. Only one has been sat to the side, and it's this guy. And I think because there's substance to that allegation.
So Syracuse, Davey, might get in anyway. Syracuse might get in. It might happen. That's cool.
I hope.